Hi, I'm Scott Starratt with Starratt Wealth Management, a part of Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management. So today, some of you may be familiar with my guest. Some of you may not, so we'll start with an introduction. Mark has spent over 25 years in the investment business prior to going out on his own recently. Outside of the investment business, Mark served as the board on the executive committee, the board of governors for the University of Calgary. He was one of the youngest Rotary district governors in the world in 2008 and 2009. Mark currently spends time on the Rotary Clubs Foundation and also the Calgary Rotary Club Foundation, pardon me, and also the Dean's Advisory Board with the Cummings School of Medicine. Not only that, but Mark is my younger brother. And so we thought we'd touch base with Mark today to find out what he's been up to and to talk more prominently about his new company that he's involved in, KASTx Ventures. Mark, you're a founder of Kaztech. You spend about half your time with Kaztech. And why, what does Kaztech do and why life sciences of all things?
Absolutely. Good. First of all, good to see you. And I'm coming to you from what I call COVID Central. From my point of view, the basement office in my home that I've been basically 24/7 since March of last year. So coming up on a year. KASTx Ventures is a portfolio company that I started over a year ago now with two great partners. Gord Anderson, who I've known for 28 years, and that name is familiar with you, Scott. He's known both our father and yourself and myself through CIBC days back in the day. And the other person is Dr. Lawrence Corngut, who is one of the top neurologists in Canada. And together, we've come across some great opportunities that we move forward, translating science and some of top science into commercial opportunities.
So one of the things that I found quite interesting with that is you start at looking at it from a very holistic point of view. You don't concentrate necessarily on the end point of licensing the product necessarily, but you really start with partnerships. Can you talk a little bit about like the partnerships that you're involved in? How did you find them, and how beneficial has that been to kind of going forward your career?
No, and I think that we have three main criteria for how we choose to get involved with our portfolio companies. First and foremost, it needs to be top science, and objectively so. So this is top science that is peer reviewed in some of the best journals around the world. It has strong intellectual property protection, so there's patents involved. And so it's top science. The second of all is it needs to have a global impact. So some of the ideas that we're looking at, whether it's asthma or pain medication or looking at rare diseases, really has a mind towards something that can happen big to make a change throughout the world. And then the third thing, which is probably the most important and what you alluded to, is the idea of having a values alignment with our scientist partners. Life is too short. We need to like and get along and have a values alignment with all of our scientists. And that goes back to the relationship that you and I had for over 28 years. I am so fortunate that in the second part of my life, I'm able to have two partners in Gord and Lawrence that I trusted as much as I trusted you, in addition to having these scientists that we're very excited to partner with to advance their science to get into patients at the end of the day. So you're right, is that a lot of things, what we do has a business focus to it, but we never sacrifice where the science leads us. And that's maybe the differentiation, is that we're not in it to make a quick buck. We're in it to do whatever we can to ensure that a diagnostic or a therapeutic actually gets into hands of the people that is needed.
How do you find now, delving in a little bit deeper, how do you find now the environment for, we all hear about the new COVID drugs and, the therapeutics and vaccines that are out there now. How do you find the system is set up for these new? Sometimes it's a rare disease drug, sometimes it's a like you say, a therapeutic. How do you find the environment out there now for those?
So we start first of all with relationships. And so the reason that there are certain types of scientists that aren't going to go to any innovator or ecosystem or entity that will help give them advice from a 30,000-foot view or write a check and forget about them. We're quickly getting a reputation for rolling up our sleeves and doing good work. So advancing things where others just sit on the sidelines and maybe give advice. And so where that really has helped us, because really when you take a look at it, our portfolio companies today come from a lot of different areas, not just in Calgary and some of our strong relationships at the University of Calgary, but we have projects out of Montreal, out of Winnipeg, out of Washington and Edmonton, in addition to Calgary. And so all of these opportunities come from relationships that all three of us, quite frankly, have had, in addition to the developing relationship of actually moving projects forward and some of the reputational things that are coming from that. When you in-license a drug into a pharmaceutical company in Canada, that's not something that happens every day. And so we were very fortunate with one of our companies, Zyndex, that we were able to in-license for a global protection, a best-in-class compound just last month.
So when you say, some people might not know what that means. What do you mean when you say you bring it into the portfolio or you license it?
Yeah, so it goes back to that intellectual property protection that I was talking about. So in the specific case of a Zyndex, we've partnered with one of the top asthma scientists in the world. And what he developed and what he has a patent for is a new neurological way of stopping asthma in its tracks. So if we take a look at asthma specifically, people use puffers, people use a whole bunch of things in order to control it, but there's still 400,000 people every year in the United States that die in hospitals from asthma. We have a pill that hopefully will abate an asthmatic attack within 20 minutes. And so he has the patent to the signal, the theory behind it. And what we've also done is we've found a best-in-class compound that turns off that signal. So it's the combination of both of those things that is allowing us this fall to go into a phase 2A trial. And if successful, about a year from now, a phase 2B trial.
That's really interesting. So one of the things you said earlier was that, one of the key parts of KASTx is relationships. And obviously, like you say, there's some relationships that the three of you have already through your years of working and career, et cetera. But how in this world of doing things like this, Zoom, do you build the relationships with the scientists or with the other partners that you may not know or that are new to the KASTx team?
Well, it's a really interesting environment, and like everyone else, we've learned along the way over the course of the last year. A couple of observations that we have: people are more captive now. So, I mean, we're actually able to probably have more one-on-one conversations with key people, be they investors, scientists, potential partners, because they're not in the middle of business travel and coordinating schedules. They're in their home offices or their downtown locations themselves. And so we find, first and foremost, we're able to get a hold of people. But second of all, it's like a lot of the relationships that we have or the people that we're talking to are warm introductions from the people in our current or in our past. So for example, Lawrence has been in the neuromuscular area, created the Canadian Neuromuscular Disease Registry in Canada, has done over 40 clinical trials around the world. And he's been nice to people early in his career. And it's funny how just being good to people, having a value-centric approach, the people that he was nice to 12, 13 years ago are key decision makers in global pharmaceutical companies now. And so that allows us to be able to say, hey, can we have 45 minutes of your time to talk to you about an idea, to get advice, to get you to put us in touch with someone that might be an industry leader in the area that we're focused on. So I can't emphasize how relationships are a key part to that.
So last question about Kaztech, then I'll move on. But what do you, how competitive is it? Like, you know, you have these drugs, like you say, you look at the asthma drug, for example, and obviously it's an area that very much is needed, especially it seems more and more over the years. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that are competing on the science side, but also competing on the commercialization side. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because what we found, and Lawrence taught us this, and it continues to be true with everybody we talk to, science in Canada is much more evolved than that of the United States. And what I mean by that is, if you have a great idea at Stanford or at Harvard, there's money to go into that very, very quickly. And when I say very, very quickly, it means that often the money is attracted to science prematurely. And if it gets prematurely, it's still in the risk profile, very early stage. So we have 2 projects within KASTx right now that are phase 2 ready. So that means that phase 1, which is, it is safe for this compound to be in humans. There's a lot of medicinal chemistry. There's a lot of safety and things. Has nothing to do with whether the drug works or not. Phase 1 is tens of millions of dollars in years to get through. So once we have a phase 2A ready compound, as we do with 2 of our projects, we now have a 35 to 40% chance of that phase 2 ready compound being approved. And so Lawrence often describes it as, we've already gone through that valley of death where the majority of compounds fail. And I think it's because one of the reasons is the Canadian science that we've been attracted to. This is often, like Dr. Richard Wilson with Zyndex, this is 25 years of his work that we've been able to get access to and have a great partnership with. This is not somebody as a postdoc in a university 2 years into that finds something. This is the culmination of his efforts. And so I think that how advanced the science is, the commercial question is always going to be a concern. I mean, the thing we hate the most and our biggest worry is, how do we attract dollars into some of these ideas? In Alberta, a lot of people are used to, and you know this from your practice, a lot of people are interested in oil and gas. And so people that have 30, 40, 50 years of investing and have been really successful in oil and gas, they understand how the Alberta economy needs to be diversified, but they don't know life sciences. They don't know what drug development is. And so it's a steep learning curve for the people that are willing to invest to be able to make those, to write those checks and to be part of those projects. And so the commercialization strategy, the getting the money to fund these, is probably our biggest concern, regardless of the strength of the team, the strength of the science, the short window to a potential exit that some of our portfolio companies have. It's still a struggle, and that's what we don't like doing. But at the same time, money makes the world go round. You need to find money to be able to advance clinical development programs and advance the science.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So, you know, I mean, what you've just described to me sounds, and maybe I'm lazy, but that sounds like a full-time job in itself. But that's only half of your time these days. What's the other half of your time be? Okay, let's not say the other half of your time, because I'll save at the end about your family. But the other half of the business time, let's say, where is that being spent now?
And it's interesting because KASTx, for the last year and a half, 2 years since I moved on, it's been a full-time job. And it's become full-time because we have rolled up our sleeves and done everything. Strategy, execution, contacts, everything like that. And only in the last 3 or 4 months, as our time has become limited, have we decided that, well, we need people to help us. And so on our website, for example, even just since the beginning of the year, we've gone from the three of us and two or three helping to organize our time and make our time more efficiently. I think we have 8 or 9 people within KASTx over and above the three of us. And so what that allows me and Lawrence and Gord to do is spend more of our time on strategic stuff, moving things forward without actually, I don't need to review a contract or take a look at a banking document or things like that. And so with that, it is enabling us to free up my time. I would not have done and said that I was doing a couple of things. So I wasn't looking for an alternative to KASTx, but I'm very fortunate that not that long ago, I was approached by a family here in Calgary wanting me to lead their single family office. And so it's an exciting opportunity. It's a complex. It's able to bring some of my past life in terms of the money side of things into one of my passions in terms of family enterprise that you and I have talked over the years about helping family dynamics and governance and things like that. And so the two opportunities, 2 full-time jobs that are each half-time on paper is KASTx and this brand new single family office that I've been invited to lead.
So, that's interesting because you start hearing, and my perception now is when you took your FEA, and let's start there. What you have an FEA designation.
Yeah.
Describe what that is, and then I'll get into the next part.
So like you over the years, in my previous life, I had a whole bunch of letters after my name, the majority of which were what you have, which is in the investment management industry. So when I left you and moved on, I let all of those drop. So the only 2 designations that I maintain going forward are my FEA, the Family Enterprise Advisor designation, and the ICD designation, or the corporate governance. And they're both interrelated because it's all about the proper strategy, governance, and interactions for businesses or companies. In the case of the ICD, governance of a private or public company, and then how that overlaps with the FEA, which is everything family dynamic. So it often starts with this, what they call a 3-circle model, that you talk about people that are owners in the business, that are also members of the family, that also may be working in the business, and how that 3-circle model is very dynamic and very complex when you have somebody that works in the business that is not an owner, somebody who's a family member that doesn't have ownership, like a spouse potentially. And it's really fascinating. These designations, which are cohort based, meaning in learning and getting the designation, there was a lot of technical things that we all learned, but they were both cohort based environments. So in the case of the FEA, we were able to be in a cohort with other professionals, accountants, lawyers, investment people, family members, so people that own family businesses or have been very successful over the years, or people that work in a family office environment, either in a single family office where it's just one family organizing all of their complex needs, or a multifamily office where maybe a company has been set up to serve many families through some shared services and things like that.
Yeah. So when you first took that education and received that designation, the whole idea of family office was a relatively new thing. There's a lot of companies out there that were trying to, how do we get involved in the family office world and stuff. And now it seems that there's more and more people that say, well, we're in a multi-family office, or we're in a single family office. What is a family office, and why would someone do that?
So in short, it's to get organized. And so speaking from my direct experiences with single family offices, so the one that I'm leading really brings together everything. So all of the business interests, all the investment interests, all of the structural interests, be them trusts or estate planning or whatever the case may be. But then you put the family dynamic on top of it. Often this is multi-generational. So you have a matriarch or patriarch, often older in age, that say, I want to involve my children or grandchildren more. And through that process, I mean, it's how do you help that next generation be prepared to be good stewards of wealth or to take over the family business. And so a single family office manages all of those things, the technical side of working with accountants and lawyers and investments, to the mentorship and the governance of how does the family interact with one another around a boardroom table to make decisions about philanthropy and the foundation or the business interests or just the day-to-day investments of the family's wealth. Whereas a multifamily office is often a professional services, so an investment firm, an accounting firm that comes together and says, we want to serve this market, we want to help these families, and we help them by organizing their investments, getting reporting set up, maybe having some skills in facilitating family meetings. And often people will say, if you've met one family office, you've met one family office, because each one is so distinct in terms of the family dynamic, but some of them are more operation focused, some of them are more security focused, some of them have deep travel properties all over the world, or equine in terms of horses and things like that. And so there's no rules. But the FEA, going back to that for just briefly, what that allowed us to do is an opportunity to know how to talk the same language with one another as professionals, if you're outside of the family office, and then inside the family office with other family members and et cetera.
Oh, so let's move to family. Obviously, you know, well, not obviously, to those who know you, it's obvious, but to those that might not, you have a son with some physical challenges, and would be classified, I would think, as high risk to the COVID virus. How is Alex doing? How is the family doing? I mean, they shut you in the basement, like you say, but other than that, are you allowed to come out?
Yeah, it's interesting. So coming up on COVID, a year, gosh, even just to say that out loud, I think within a couple of weeks, it's going to be a year that we've been under these protocols. Alex hasn't been to school. And so all of the remainder of last year and since this September. So for your audience that may not be caught up on timelines, Alex is in grade 7 and 12 years old now. And many of the people listening to this will remember when Alex was born, or some people may not even know who Alex is. So it's an interesting catch up. So he has not been at school. So he's missing his friends, playing with friends on play dates where they're masked up are few and far between. They do play their share of video games online together, but that's a different social interaction when you're yelling about video games with friends. And so he misses that aspect of it. But he's smart, he's brilliant, he's keeping up on his work. He's not doing online school, which was the original option presented to us, come to school or go online. But in the separate system, the online, you needed to make a full year commitment to. And back when last September rolled around, we didn't know how long this was going to be, right? And so at St. Vincent de Paul, where he goes to school, we have a little bit of a mixture, meaning he's still part of his class. He still is doing work along the same timelines of everybody in grade 7, but he's not really attending classes. He'll go to a Zoom meeting now. That has kind of been set up maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but it's really about teachers keeping in touch with him with assignments and him doing it on his own with us or with aides. And so he's happy, he's brilliant, and we're just stuck at home right now during COVID on the Alex side. But he's still getting Spinraza, which was that now approved in Canada and the United States clinical study that he was a part of and that we were going down to Portland for many years. Since COVID, we've now had 3 doses in Calgary while still being part of that Portland study. And there's things in the future, both positive and other challenges that we'll have to face from a surgery or therapeutic point of view. But he's happy, he's doing well, and everything is going well. Jen as well is focusing on her neuroplasticity, the Anat Baniel stuff. Like any other practitioner that works with patients or people, she's been struggling as well. She just got office space outside of the home. So going forward, when things calm down with COVID, she'll be able to get out of the house like I will with the family office opportunity. And just do some of that work out of the house and bring the value to her patients that she's able to do.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, Mark. It's good to get caught up, and I think everybody to hear Kaztech's quite an interesting deviation from your old life, as you said. And for anybody who's interested in finding out more, definitely reach out to Kaztech. You spell it KASTx. So if you just search for that, you'll be able to find out. It's the first thing that comes up when you search that name. And for anybody who wants more information about life sciences or investment management or family offices, multi or single family offices, please reach out to us at www.starrattwealth.com.